Russia built a road to keep Crimea alive. Ukraine is trying to turn that road into a killing ground. The route from Melitopol to Crimea is one of Russia's most important military lifelines in the south. It carries fuel, ammunition, spare parts, vehicles, and supplies toward the peninsula, then back into the war zone. But a road is only safe when no one is watching. Now, according to Ukraine, drone operators from the 3rd Special Purpose Regiment are watching that corridor from the sky. A truck can leave Melitopol with fuel. A military vehicle can move toward Crimea with supplies. A convoy can try to pass through open ground. But before it reaches its destination, it may already be tracked. This is not just about one destroyed vehicle. It is about something larger and more dangerous for Russia. Ukraine is trying to make movement itself unsafe. Every road becomes a risk. Every supply run becomes a gamble. Every delay puts more pressure on Russian forces in Crimea. So the question is no longer whether Ukraine can hit the corridor. The question is how long Russia can keep using it. Stay with us and subscribe to Military Force for more clear battlefield analysis. Ukraine's 3rd Special Purpose Regiment is turning the Melitopol to Crimea route into a constant pressure zone for Russian logistics. This campaign is not built around one dramatic strike. It is built around repeated observation, patient tracking, and the steady use of UAVs against a road system Russia still needs every day. For Moscow, this southern route is part of the land corridor that connects occupied areas of Ukraine with Crimea. It helps move fuel, ammunition, spare parts, military equipment, food, and personnel toward the peninsula. It also supports Russian forces operating across southern Ukraine. That is why Ukraine is not treating this road like an ordinary transport line. It is treating it like a military artery, and arteries become dangerous when the enemy knows where the blood is moving. Melitopol matters because it sits inside Russia's wider supply network in the south. From this area, Russian logistics can move toward Crimea, toward occupied parts of Zaporizhzhia, and toward other rear positions that support the front. The route through Chonhar and the Sivash area is especially important because it leads into Crimea through limited crossing points. That gives the corridor a clear military value, but it also creates a weakness. When traffic must pass through known roads and narrow access areas, it becomes easier to watch from the sky. Russia can try to hide movement, but geography still forces vehicles into predictable spaces. This is where Ukraine's UAV campaign becomes more than a tactical action. A reconnaissance drone does not need to destroy anything immediately to change the battlefield. Its first value is information. It can see where vehicles gather, where they slow down, which roads are used again, and which points are protected by air defense or electronic warfare. Over time, this creates a map of Russian habits. Once those habits are known, a supply run is no longer just a supply run. It becomes a pattern, and patterns can be attacked. The terrain makes this problem even harder for Russia. Much of this southern area is open, flat, and difficult to conceal. Long roads run through exposed ground, and there are not many forests, hills, or dense urban areas to hide a convoy. A truck can spread out from another truck, but it cannot disappear. A driver can move faster, but speed does not remove the heat signature, dust trail, or visible shape of a vehicle on a road. At the same time, narrow crossing points reduce freedom of movement. If several routes all lead into the same limited gates, Ukraine does not need to watch every meter with the same intensity. It only needs to understand where Russian traffic must eventually pass. That is why this campaign should not be seen as a random drone hunt. Ukraine is trying to create repeated pressure along a corridor that Russia cannot easily abandon. If the road becomes too risky, Russian commanders must change their behavior. They may send smaller groups, move at different hours, use side roads, add jamming vehicles, or place short-range air defense closer to the route. But every adjustment has a cost. Smaller convoys carry less. Longer routes burn more fuel. Extra protection takes vehicles away from other missions. Delays can build up before anything explodes. For Russia, the danger is not only the loss of a single truck or one damaged vehicle. The deeper threat is the loss of confidence in the route itself. A logistics system works best when movement is regular, planned, and safe enough to repeat. Once drone pressure makes that movement uncertain, commanders must spend more time protecting the supply line instead of using it freely. That turns the Melitopol-Crimea corridor from a rear area into an active part of the battlefield. And when a supply corridor is watched this closely, the next issue is no longer which vehicle gets hit first. The bigger issue is whether Russia can still move fuel, ammunition, and equipment at the speed its forces need. Ukraine's UAV units are not only watching Russian vehicles on the Melitopol-Crimea route, they are learning how Russian logistics moves. This is what makes the campaign dangerous. A drone does not have to strike the first truck it sees. It can stay above the road, follow the line of movement, and help operators understand what kind of convoy is passing below. One vehicle may carry fuel, another may carry ammunition, a third may be a repair truck, a command vehicle, or an escort with electronic warfare equipment. From the ground, they may all look like another Russian supply group. From the air, each one has a different value. That difference decides which target matters most. The kill chain begins before the explosion. A reconnaissance UAV detects movement, then follows the direction of travel. Operators study the spacing between vehicles, the speed of the convoy, the road it chooses, and the points where it slows down. If the target is valuable enough, the drone can pass information to another strike system, or it can guide an FPV drone toward the weak point. This is a battlefield process, not a random attack. First comes detection, then comes tracking, then comes selection. Only after that does the strike arrive. For Russian logistics, the most important targets are not always the most armored ones. A tank is powerful, but it is not the only thing that keeps an army alive. Fuel trucks, ammunition carriers, repair vehicles, recovery trucks, and supply vans can be just as important because they keep the rest of the force moving. If a fuel vehicle burns, many other vehicles may lose their range. If an ammunition truck is hit, the effect can spread beyond one road. If a repair vehicle is destroyed, damaged equipment may stay broken for longer. That is how one small target can create a larger military problem. Convoys are also vulnerable because their shape creates choices for the attacker. If Ukraine hits the lead vehicle, the column may stop or lose direction. If the last vehicle is struck, the convoy can be trapped between a blocked route and a dangerous retreat. If the center is hit, the group may split apart, and drivers may be forced to move without clear order. A road that looked simple can quickly become crowded, confused, and exposed. In that moment, the convoy becomes easier to strike again. The real advantage of UAVs is patience. Operators can wait until the convoy reveals itself. They can watch whether Russian escorts are strong or weak. They can see if jamming vehicles are present, if short-range air defense is moving nearby, or if the convoy is trying to hide under darkness or bad weather. This kind of observation gives Ukraine more than a target. It gives Ukraine a pattern of behavior. Once that pattern is known, future supply runs become easier to predict. This is why the fight is shifting from destroying vehicles to controlling movement. Russia may still use the road, but it must now think like a force under constant surveillance. Commanders must ask when to move, how many vehicles to send, which route to choose, and how much protection to attach. Even if no strike happens, the threat still changes the decision. A supply system that once moved by schedule now has to move by fear, caution, and risk. That pressure reaches beyond the road itself. When transport becomes slower, smaller, and harder to protect, the delay moves forward into the bases and units waiting for supplies. The real test will be seen when Russian forces in Crimea need fuel, ammunition, and equipment at the same time Ukraine is trying to make every delivery harder. The deeper effect of Ukraine's drone campaign is the pressure it places on Russia's ability to keep Crimea supplied. According to Ukraine, the attacks along the Melitopol-Crimea route have already made the movement of fuel, ammunition, equipment, and military supplies more difficult. That matters because Crimea is not just a political symbol for Moscow. It is a large military platform. Russia uses the peninsula for air defense, naval activity, logistics storage, airfields, fuel depots, ammunition sites, and support operations for the southern front. In simple terms, Crimea is not only a place Russia wants to hold. It is a base Russia needs to use. Fuel is one of the most sensitive parts of that system. Without regular fuel deliveries, military vehicles cannot move freely. Generators at bases become harder to support, and transport units must choose which missions are worth the cost. A shortage does not have to be total to create problems. Even a delay can force commanders to save fuel, reduce movement, or postpone routine transport. For an army spread across a large southern theater, slower fuel flow can weaken reaction time before a battle even begins. That turns a logistics problem into an operational limit. Ammunition creates another kind of pressure. If shells, rockets, small arms rounds, and drone supplies do not arrive on schedule, Russian units may still fight, but they may have to fight with more caution. Commanders may reduce firing rates, protect reserve stocks, or shift ammunition towards sectors considered more urgent. That choice can create tension across the front. One unit may receive enough supplies, while another waits longer than expected. This is how a strike far behind the line can shape the rhythm of fighting many miles away. Equipment and repair supplies are just as important, even though they receive less attention than explosions. A damaged vehicle needs parts. A radar system may need maintenance. A short-range air defense battery may require replacement components after long use. If those materials move slowly toward Crimea, small technical problems can build into larger readiness issues. A truck that should return to service may stay parked. A launcher that needs repair may remain unavailable. A radar that loses efficiency may leave a gap at the wrong time. War is often decided by these hidden delays. Russia can respond, but every answer adds more friction. It can break convoys into smaller groups, move at night, use secondary roads, increase camouflage, or add more electronic warfare protection. These steps may reduce risk in one area, but they also slow the system. Smaller loads mean more trips. Longer routes burn more fuel. Extra escorts require more vehicles and more crews. Night movement can help concealment, but it also creates fatigue and navigation problems. The supply line keeps working, yet it becomes heavier, less efficient, and harder to manage. This is the central point of the campaign. Ukraine does not need to completely cut the road to reduce its value. It only needs to make the route unstable enough that Russia can no longer treat it as a safe rear corridor. A military base depends on routine. Fuel must arrive before vehicles stop. Ammunition must reach depots before stocks fall too low. Spare parts must be available before equipment failure spreads. Once that routine is disturbed, Crimea becomes more expensive to operate as a war base. That is why the Melitopol-Crimea route is only one layer of the larger picture. The pressure on the road is important, but Ukraine is also reaching deeper into the systems that protect and sustain Russian power across the peninsula. Crimea is now one of the main targets in Ukraine's deeper campaign against Russia's military system behind the front. This matters because the peninsula is not only a place on the map. For Russia, it is a layered military base with air defenses, radar sites, command posts, naval facilities, fuel storage, and logistics hubs. These systems work together. One part watches the sky, another protects key sites, another moves orders, ships, fuel, and equipment. If Ukraine can damage several parts of this network at the same time, Crimea becomes harder to defend and harder to use in the war. In recent weeks, Ukraine has increased strikes against Russian air defense systems, radar installations, command locations, patrol vessels, supply sites, and fuel facilities on or near the peninsula. This is not only about destroying expensive equipment. It is about making Russia protect more targets with fewer safe options. When the pressure spreads across land, sea, and air defense zones, Russian commanders must decide what to shield first. A fuel depot, a radar station, a bridge approach, a command post, or a naval asset may all need protection at the same time. Systems like the Panzer S-1 are especially important in this picture. Panzer is designed to protect military bases, air defense positions, fuel sites, radar areas, and other high-value targets from aircraft, missiles, and drones. But if a Panzer battery is located, tracked, or destroyed, the defended area behind it becomes more exposed. The loss is not only the vehicle itself. The bigger loss is the protective bubble around other Russian assets. Once that bubble gets thinner, Ukraine may find more room to strike again. Radar and command posts create a different weakness. Radar helps Russia see threats before they arrive, while command centers help decide how to respond. If Ukraine hits these sites, it can reduce Russia's ability to detect drones, coordinate defenses, and manage the airspace around Crimea. That can create confusion during a larger attack. A drone raid becomes more dangerous when defenders see it late, react slowly, or receive incomplete information. In modern war, the side that loses awareness often loses time, and time is the first layer of defense. Patrol vessels and small naval assets also have real value around Crimea. They help monitor the sea, guard approaches to ports, support coastal security, and protect areas linked to bridges, bases, and supply routes. When these vessels are attacked, Russia must spread its defenses across more directions. It cannot focus only on roads or airfields. It must also worry about harbors, sea lanes, and the coastline. That forces Moscow to defend Crimea as a wide military space, not just as a land position. Fuel facilities and logistics depots remain among the most sensitive targets because they connect directly to endurance. A fire at a fuel site can create more than local damage. It can force Russia to move fuel from another location, change storage patterns, increase convoy traffic, and expose more transport assets. A destroyed supply site can create the same kind of chain reaction. The material may be replaced, but the replacement must travel through routes that are already under pressure. This is why Ukraine's campaign should be understood as a network attack. It is not only striking targets that look important on video. It is going after the links that allow Crimea to function as a war base. Air defense, radar, command posts, patrol vessels, fuel storage, and logistics hubs are all connected. If one link weakens, the others must carry more pressure. If several are hit together, the whole system becomes less stable. That is where the campaign moves into its next layer. Once the military nodes around Crimea are under pressure, the transport system that feeds them becomes even more important. Rail lines, locomotives, and military routes are no longer just background infrastructure. They become the channels Russia must keep open if it wants Crimea to keep working. Railways and military transport routes are becoming another regular target in Ukraine's drone campaign around Crimea. This matters because rail is not just another way to move supplies. In war, a train can carry far more than a truck convoy. It can move artillery shells, fuel containers, armored equipment, repair parts, engineering tools, and fresh personnel in large volumes. For Russia, that makes rail transport a powerful tool, but it also creates a clear weakness. When so much military weight depends on a few transport lines, even a small disruption can slow a much larger system. Ukraine does not always need to destroy an entire railway to create this effect. A locomotive can be enough. If one engine is damaged, the train behind it may stop. If a rail section is hit, repair crews must move in before traffic returns to normal. If a transfer point is struck, supplies may pile up in the wrong place. This is why railway attacks can be more important than they look at first. One hit on a key part of the network can delay many loads that were never directly attacked. The timing also matters. Rail logistics works best when it follows a steady schedule. Trains move by planned routes, fixed stops, and repeated patterns. If drone pressure forces Russia to change those patterns, the advantage begins to shrink. Night movement may become more dangerous. Loading areas may need stronger protection. Trains may wait longer before moving through exposed sections. A system designed for volume and rhythm starts to act with caution, and caution costs time. This is part of the wider strategy behind Ukraine's deep strikes. The goal is not only to hit what is visible on the battlefield. It is to disturb Russia's ability to move forces, deliver ammunition, and keep military activity running across southern Ukraine. A frontline unit may fire the weapon, but the shell must first travel through depots, roads, trains, trucks, and storage sites. If any part of that chain becomes unreliable, combat power at the front begins to feel the pressure. Ukraine is expanding this kind of logistics warfare with UAVs because drones can watch, wait, and strike without needing to hold the ground below. This is not a classic blockade where soldiers physically close a road or seize a railway station. It is closer to a drone blockade. The route may still exist, but every movement across it carries risk. A train can still run, but it may be tracked. A supply convoy can still depart, but it may be followed. A depot can still operate, but it may be marked. The idea is simple. A modern army does not only lose when tanks are destroyed in frontline battles. It can also weaken when fuel arrives late, ammunition moves slowly, and spare parts cannot reach the units that need them. That kind of damage is less dramatic than a tank explosion, but it can be more dangerous over time. If this trend continues, Crimea will not only face drone attacks from the outside, it will be pulled into a long logistics war where every road, railway, fuel site, and transport route can become a weak point. Ukraine's UAV campaign on the Melitopol to Crimea route shows how modern war is moving deeper behind the front line. This is not only about destroyed trucks, burning fuel sites, or damaged air defense systems. It is about pressure on the network that keeps Russian power in Crimea alive. A base does not function by weapons alone. It needs roads, trains, fuel, ammunition, spare parts, repair teams, and safe movement every day. That is the real danger for Russia. If every supply route can be watched, every convoy can be tracked, and every rail movement can be threatened, Crimea becomes harder to use as a secure military platform. It may still be held on the map, but holding ground is different from operating freely from it. Ukraine does not need to close the corridor completely to change the war. It only needs to make every delivery slower, more expensive, and less certain. In a long war of endurance, logistics can decide what firepower cannot. The side that controls movement can shape the next battle before it begins. Subscribe to Military Force for more clear and serious battlefield analysis.